Good evening, good evening, good evening, faces. Thank you for tuning in. I am Tamara L., your host for this evening, and I would like to welcome you to another episode of Just Another Messenger. Now, this podcast is where we're going to deep dive. We're going to go deep this evening into some thought provoking conversations on history, language, culture, current events, personal growth, as well as everything in between. Now, each episode, we're going to bring a fresh perspective on life's complexities with engaging conversation and discussions that challenges the status quo and inspire meaningful dialogue. That's why we say at Just Another Messenger, we are more than just talk. So continue to join us each and every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for insightful chats that go beyond the surface, offering a blend of information, inspiration, and a little bit of humor in between. It wouldn't be humor without me. All right, now subscribe and be a part of the conversation. You wouldn't want to miss it. Now, got to give you a disclaimer for the evening. Now, the views, opinions, and thoughts are the protective expression of me, Tamara L., for storytelling and educational purpose only, and it does not provide any statutory counseling for any United States color or law jurisdictional proceeding. Now you have to say that so you won't get banned off these platforms. Now, as you see scrolling across the bottom of the platform, you see how you could donate. If you like to support Just Another Messenger, we are not monetizing on YouTube, has no plans on monetizing on YouTube because we like to keep the page up as long as we could. So if you like to donate and support the channel and the work we're doing now and the work we're going to continue to do, I'm excited. It's episode number 4. We're on the roll. So if you like to support, as you can see strolling across the bottom, you can go to Cash App, $ at Just Another Messenger and donate. Please donate, and so we can go ahead and do the meaningful work that we have planned on doing for the channel. Now, please, where our numbers are getting up, I'm very excited about that. Last week was very exciting give a big shout out to Ponder, a messenger of information from Crom TV. We had a blast last week providing information regarding Black nobility and the colonial machine. It was a breathtaking podcast last week. So go back to the page and look at that, gain some insightful information and see how the three connects together in connection with reparation and the agenda of colonization. Those three podcasts, first 3, I'm very excited about those. So go back and check them out. Now, as you can see scrolling across the bottom of your page, if you would like to continue to subscribe, share, and like, we're on YouTube at Just Another Messenger. So at Just Another Messenger on YouTube. Also, we're building out our X page. We're on X at Jam_404 podcast. Yes, I am in the Atlanta area jurisdiction. Yes. So I am here. That's why you got the 404. We're the original ATLians here. So we know about that 404. I don't know about the 678, 770, all that stuff. We are 404. And if you'd like to contact me by email, I can be reached at justanothermessengerpodcast@gmail.com. So very excited about that. Man, I have some great information for this evening to share with you. Now, this episode, this evening, we're going to do some unearthing. We're going to make some correlation between historical foundation and today's current events. We're going to make those connections. Now, we're going to unearth the most powerful movement that's occurring today regarding no confidence within the Black communities as individuals demand accountability from political leaders, law enforcement, and institutions. I know a lot of times people say, well, Tamara, you're not Black. Black is an adjective. I'm well aware of the semantics. I'm well aware of the racial constructs. We're going to speak to our audience that we're going to get them to the space, get to the understanding of who we are, where we came from. So that's the premises of creating the space for conversation. All right. Now, we're also going to explore historical roots, current challenges, as well as inspiring calls for justice. highlighting voices of resilience and the urgent needs for systematic change. So let's get started with this. I have this wonderful PowerPoint here for you this evening. I am very excited about this information that's going to be presented, and it's called No Confidence. The rising call for accountability in Black communities. Now, let's see here. Now, let's get this started this evening. All right. Now, what is a vote of confidence? Now, just recently, last week on November the 5th, last Tuesday, November the 5th, every 4 years in the United States jurisdiction, they have a vote. There's a vote of who will be the next, I'm going to say president. I'm going to just keep it in alignment, president. Who will be the next president of the United States Jurisdiction Corporation? So when the society within that jurisdiction make a decision to cast their vote, it's called a vote of confidence. Now, that vote of confidence is often seen as the vote of the confidence because it empowers the citizens to affirm their trust in leaders and systems, as well as shaping society's future. Now, each vote reflects individual beliefs in the possibility of change and a commitment to accountability, expressing both hope and the trust in the democratic process. I did not say the Republican process, the democratic process. Now, the vote was cast. America, the Americans, the United States citizens, they spoke. And they spoke and they determined that they wanted Donald Trump to be the president-elect for the United States for the year 2025 to 2028, 2029 year. So the people spoke. He received 320 electoral votes. As you can see, he received 75,581,082 votes, which came out to be 50.5% of the popular votes. So 75 million people said yes to Donald Trump. Now the total states won 31. That's over a majority. 31 of the 50 states said, hey, this is who we want as the president-elect. So you have a lot of, over the past week, I've seen so much just anger over this. People in stripes within the family and friends and things of that nature taking place, which is not necessary, especially if you haven't been involved in the local election and your local community and things of that nature. So that means there's a lack of understanding with understanding the three branches of government and how the operation of that work and how the Constitution has the way of protecting things from dictatorship in the U.S. jurisdiction and the history behind why those measures was put in place in the first place. All right. So the people spoke, and 75,581,082 people, which is 50.5% of the people, said they prefer President-elect Trump to be the next president. So there you go. That's called a vote of confidence for the society. Now we have to find a way to move on, because not only was the vote of confidence cast out, there's no confidence that is occurring within pockets of areas, communities, regarding the injustice and inequality that continues to plague, the different societies in America. And we're going to get into that. Now, as I said before, the basis of all civilizations, it deals with the God principle. And those God principles of every society, they'll pick and choose which God principle they would like to be the apex of that society. Some societies prefer to be Christianity. Some say Islam, which is Mohammedanism. Some say Buddhism, Confucian, Judaism. So it depends on the society, the person that's running, that has been elected or selected or through monarch control, how that God principle is going to be the ruling authority, moral compass for that society. Now, within a society, there's a breakdown of law. Law deals with jurisprudence, whether it be positive law or negative law. Negative law is statute, codes, and ordinance, which is statutory law. All right, so we're going to go through that. We're going to go through we went through the language, understanding the language. Now, the language is going to be etymology, which is the true origin, science, meaning of a word, whereas semantics is, the word. It's like a study of the word. Not the study of the word. I'm sorry. It's the meaning of the word, not the true meaning, but the meaning of the word. And you have the phonetics, as we spoke last week. That was one thing. We'll update this PowerPoint to add the phonetics of the word within the language. And at the bottom of the apex, and people say, why are the people at the bottom? Because the people are tied to the land. People are connected. They're not the land. They have a connection to the land because of the placement of birth placements. And that's how the connection to the land connects people to their inheritance. So that's what attaches me from the earth, from the soul. Then you have indigenous, when something is it grows in this area. It may not originate from one area, but it grows in that area. Then you have natives. Then you have the status in which people immigrate, which is out of one nation or territory, which is the land, and immigrate, which is immigration from out to in into another territory or jurisdiction. So you have to look at those aspects of the political status as well as the nationality status of the people of the various lands. All right. Now, this may be a little blurry, but this is from Marcus Garvey, and I thought this was like amazing. When I saw this, I was like, this is perfect. I love it. Let me just take that off the top. Let me take that seal off there. It say, if you have no confidence in self, that's powerful. That sentence could have really stopped right there, and that would have just made me happy and excited. And they say, if you have no confidence in self, you are twice defeated in the race of life. Yeah, let me say that again for some people in the back. If you have no confidence in self, you are twice defeated in the race of life. What is that self? Let's look at these words. What is being conveyed here? It's talking about the self of knowing who you are as a people. And it's also talking about there's a process in life. It's a race. It's a race of understanding, not a physical running race. It is a race of journey through the evolution of the life cycle. And the sum of that creates the legacy of what you build and what you leave behind and things of that nature. So I thought this was very important to highlight and to put out there. Now, we're going to talk about a little bit of law. I think it's important to discuss this particular law because this helps connect the understanding of the historical past to today's current events. In law, there's a doctrine called the fruits of the poisonous tree doctrine. Now, in this law, it states what happens in law enforcement violates the protection offered by the Fourth Amendment. So the most straightforward explanation is courts will not allow evidence obtained as a result of an illegal search. One court said the essence of a provision preventing the acquisition of evidence in a certain way is that not merely evidence acquired should not be used before the court, but that it shall not be used at all. So when something is the root of something, of anything, even in law, so the root of something and the fruit it produces are have a direct correlation. Now, the fruits of the poisonous tree doctrine applies to searches, arrests, confessions, and other evidence gathered activities of law enforcement. Now, we must keep in mind when we're looking at this is that, as I stated, everything comes from a seed. The seed of anything will produce something. So the seed of a nation produces the moral compass and fiber within that society and how that society operates. So it's important to understand that the root, the seed of any tree produces the fruit of its kind. So if you have a seed, and that seed, like even in the Bible, it tells you, this talk about, this is a Christian nation. This nation has been declared to be a Christian nation. And in the Bible, it say that when you cast your seeds, you lay your seeds, you put them on stony grounds, fertile ground, and the production that is based off the chaos of the seed being able to have a good environment, a rocky environment. It's not going to produce the proper fruit. That's why it must be in fertile environment, nourishing environment to be able to flourish and grow. Now, throughout this series and body of knowledge we're presenting here, there was a body of nations that was already well settled in the land. We're going to look at this for detailed understanding of that. Now, I would like to point our attention to this area, like it's closer to the Atlantic Ocean. I wish I had my pointer to be able to show you this. And this area is called Ananashani, and it's like a little northwest above Lenape and south. So if you look on the eastern seaboard, you'll see the area that was called Ananashani. And I'm prefacing this area in particular because this is the area in which the last colonizers of North America came into by way of the eastern seaboard. So they had connections with this nation called Ananashani that had a constitution that was already laid out. They had governments. They had moral compass in the way that they operated within their nation. It was 5 nations that became. If you're looking it up in like online currently, recently, you're going to see where it's not going to say Ananashani. It's going to say Iroquois. And I'm going to show you the correct spelling of that. It's going to say Iroquois Confederate Constitution. Now, this constitution is important, and I'm going to show you why this constitution is very important, because this constitution helped frame the Constitution for the United States. It's very important to really show you this framework and the moral compass and fiber of the two varying nations. So we talk about the nations was already settled. They had an operating government. They have codes. They had positive law codes in which were adhered to, as well as you have the new nations that came in that created what we call statute codes and ordinance. Now, we're going to go into this, and I'm going to show you the framework of the Iroquois Constitution. Iroquois Constitution. Let's look at this. Now, it say number 17, and on the Constitution it say wampum 17. Like in the current today's, if you're reading the Constitution today, it'll say Article 4 of the Constitution, or Article 1 of the Constitution, which we the people. Article 1, that actually before Article 1, you have Article 1, you have Article 4. So in the Iroquois Constitution, it was called wampum, WAMPUM, wampum. So this is like wampum number 17 of the Iroquois Constitution. And number 17 said that, and this deals with clans and consanguinity. Clans is kinfolks, consanguinity is by blood. And it say that a bunch of a certain number of shell wampum strings, each 2 spans in length, shall be given to each of the female families in which the lordship titles are vested. Now, the right of bestowing the title shall be hereditary in the family of the females legally possessing the bunch of shell strings, and the string shall be the token that the females of the family have the propriety right of the lordship. So what are you saying here? The constitution of the land was matriarchal principle, which means that the rights of the land, the inheritance, it was in the woman. It was in the woman, and the lineage to hold it, it was all vested into the woman. Now let's get into this too. Wampum number 44 say the lineal descent of the people of the five nations shall run in the female line. Women shall be considered the progenitors of the nation. They shall own the land and the soil. Men and women shall follow the status of the mother. So now I know in previous broadcasts, I showed you where the Europeans, the colonists, change the patriarchal status of the child following the status of the father. They changed the status to follow the status of the mother in order for the child to be in a slavery servitude for life. So now you can see the connection between that. All right. Now it say the woman heirs of the Confederate lordship title shall be called Rowena, which is noble for all the time to come. All right. It say the women of the 48, now 50 Rowena families shall be the heirs of the authorized names for all time to come. Authorized names. So the taking the name of the male was not a part of the matriarchal principles of the land. That was not, because the inheritance was invested in the woman. So this was the framework. Now keep in mind, it said that the lordship. Now, the lordship, what that means is that the woman of the matriarch of the family line is called the noble one. She is the noble one, and the noble one bestows the lordship. She bestows the lordship to the male heir. The male is the lord of that clan and consequently. So the first male heir is the lord that the noble appoints to the first heir, her first heir, and she calls him the Lord. Lord means the keeper of the bread. He is the one who go forward and at the direction of the noble, the matriarch household, and set the tone of conversation. He sits at the table and sets the tone of conversation amongst men of various men in various nations. Now, this was the constitution of the land, the territory. Now, and also, if any disputes occur, the Lord is the one that handle all the disputes. The Lord is the one that go before war and protect the nation of that clan and consanguinity. So that was the moral compass and constitution of the territory of the nations that were already settled in the land. All right. Now let's go here. It say the duties of the Iroquois Constitution. It say certain physical defects in a Confederate lord make him ineligible to sit in the Confederate Council. Such defects are infancy, idolatry, blindness, deafness, dumbness, and impotency. Yeah, if you ain't had ability to produce, you're not entitled to be called a lord. That lordship passes down to the next male heir within that clanship of that house. It passes down. If you're considered to be dumb and has no understanding of protecting your nation, you are not going to be bestowed the title of the Lord, the keeper of the bread. All right. When a Confederate lord is restricted by any of these conditions, a deputy shall be appointed by his sponsor to act for him. But in case of extreme necessity, the restricted lord may exercise his rights. No lord shall be asked more than once to attend the Confederate Council. Nobody coming to you twice. You'll be told about a meeting once from the noble, just once. The noble would get the information from the clan mothers regarding the meeting that needs to take place, and the clan mother, the noble, she will report that meeting and time of what time the Lord should convene together. And if that noble didn't show up for that meeting, he's forfeit his duties. He's not going to be told twice at all, period. Now, and when that happens, when he is derelict of his duties, this is what happened. Other lords come forward and they'll say, behold, the brightness of the sun, and in the brightness of the sun's light, I dispose you of your title and remove the sacred emblem of your lordship title. I remove from your brow the deer antlers, which was the emblem of your position and token of your nobility. I now dispose you and return the antlers to the women whose heritage they are. Yeah, it belongs to the heritage of the women. And the mothers, as I have now disposed your Lord, I now return to you the emblem and the title of lordship, therefore repossess them. Yeah, so that's what happens when you're not taking care of the home, when you're not taking care of the clan, you lose your title, you lose your position, you lose your footing. When there was no plan as being able to, what they say, shirk your duties. You couldn't shirk your duties within the clan. It was very important to make sure the women and children was protected, to make sure that the way of being able to trade and economic commerce. So, you have fair market and fair market share for your clan to be able to produce the harvest and things. That was very important within the foundation of the land of the Constitution. Now, it's very important I'm bringing this information because I'm trying to make a correlation, because when we talked about, as Marcus Garvey says, when you don't know who you are as yourself. I want to make sure I get this right, because I thought that was just amazing. Let's just go back to that. This is what Marcus Garvey said. If you have no confidence in self, you are now twice defeated in the race of life. So that's why I'm showing this information. I'm showing this information so that way you'll be able to make a correlation and connection between who you are and where you stand for. Because if you don't know who, as we said before, if you don't know who you are, you don't know what to fight about. Now, we're going to look at this. We talked about the duties. We talked about the framework. Now let's go here. Now, as you can see here, this was an Indian chief, and his name was Cananastia. All right. Now, he worked with Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin was one of the proprietors. He was considered a Lord Proprietor of the Pennsylvania Charter. He was a Lord Proprietor of the Pennsylvania Charter. Now, let's look at this in detail. Now, on this, you'll see here that he's at a meeting. You see old Benny sitting there? Oh, Benny's sitting there with the receding, well, all of them have a little receding hair, next to the man with the hat on. So that's a little depiction of Ben Franklin sitting there. And Ben Franklin, he's demonstrating now this territory, this nation representative, he's showing to where the unity of a nation has its strength when it's together. Now let's read here. And he pulled out a single arrow from his quiver, and with little effort, he broke it in two. Basically, he's saying as a single nation, you're weak. You're weak as a single nation. Then he pulled 6 more arrows. Now, keep in mind that a confederacy is more than one. So that's why I say United States Confederate, which means the joining of multiple states. So as you can see here, he's showing how when those nations needed to come together, because they was 13 different colonies doing their own thing. So he was trying to say, when you come together as a nation, you're much stronger. So he pulled out the arrows that represented the 6 Confederate nations that had came together under the Anishinaabe umbrella of the Constitution and moral compass. And those 6 nations of the Iroquois, he tried to break the bundle of the arrows, but it was unsuccessful. Now, Canastia words were written down and published in Ben Franklin newspaper, and later others all over the colonies. Now, colonial leaders read his words. Those words would later influence the drafting of the United States Constitution 40 years later. So when they say, hey, we're not a part of the Constitution, you hear a lot of things say. People say, we're not a part of the Constitution. We're much so a part of the Constitution. We helped to create the framework of the Constitution that you see today. And the Confederacy, this was done by colonists working with current nations and their constitutions and looking at the drafting of how their constitutions was set up in order to create the Constitution that you see today. And if you explore and go into the Constitution of the Anishinaabe Confederate Constitution, you'll see where the eagle, even the imagery from the eagle to the arrows to the leaves in the talon, which is the feet of the eagle, all that information is written into the Constitution of the Anishinaabe Confederacy Constitution. Even the framework of the various houses, the lower house, which is the House of Delegates, and the upper house, which is the Senate. You'll see how the Anishinaabe Confederate Constitution had their framework set up with that. I want to show this book. I think this book, I love this book. This book is written by Senator Mike Lee, and it's called, I hope you can see it. It's called Written Out of History. And it say the forgotten founders of big government, the forgotten founders who fought big government. And this is a really good book for reference, just for reference points. And Senator Mike Lee, he was a Republican out of the state of Utah. He was an advocate for limited government. He felt that government had gotten too big and overstepped into the people's business, too much into the people business. But let me just read some of the things that occurred where Ben Franklin created the Join or Die movement. Like I said, if you go to the city of Philadelphia and you go to the 76ers game and you look on the floor, you see the snake that's cut up into 13 pieces. That was a movement that Ben Franklin had. It was one of the movement, Join or Die, where he was urging all the different colonies to even confederate together under one flag. Now, Constantine stated in here that our wise forefathers established union and amity between the 5 nations. This has made us unformidable. This has given us great weight and authority with our neighboring nations. We are a powerful confederacy, and by your observing the same methods our wise forefathers have taken, you will acquire much strength and power. Therefore, whatever befalls you, do not fall out with another. Now, I know people see that all the time and they're like, oh, they will attribute those words to, the Europeans stated that, and the credit is actually given to the people of the land who already had nations, culture, how they operated within the land and in a constitution. All right. And now let me give you another quote that Ben Franklin wrote in 1751. He said, "It would be a very strange thing if 6 nations of ignorant savages should be capable of forming a scheme for such a union and be able to execute it in such a manner as that it has subsisted ages. Which means it has been going on for ages and appears to be indissoluble. And yet a like union should be impractical for 10 or a dozen English colonies." That was written by Benjamin Franklin in 1751. Now, this information can also be found in the Benjamin Franklin archives paper. So you can see that information there as well. Now, another thing that Benjamin Franklin wrote is, "Savages, we call them because their manners differ from ours, which we think the perfection of civility. They think the same of us." Yeah. So Benjamin Franklin said, while we calling them savages, hey, they have a constitution. These people have unity. How are we calling them savages? I'm quite sure they're looking at us as savages as well, because we're the ones who not unified, not together. So, as the when the migration came, let's keep in mind that this was during a time period of a new nation being formed. You have to remember where you come from, and this is very dangerous. When you where you come from, there's a lot of times old habits and old ways are brought with you. So there was a patriarchal principle that was brought with them. Here we have here King Henry VIII. He was considered a man, a monarch, and a monster. King Henry was a tutor. Tutor is another word for black. He was a black king, and he ruled in a patriarchal fashion over the area in Europe. And this started a migration wave to the new colony, to the new world, for religious protection against religious persecution. Now, one of the things we're going to say here is that I wanted to show you this as well. And we're going to, and so I'm going to show you this. This is another book I wanted to show. I think this is a great book before we get into this. Let me just bring this off. This is a really great book. Another book I want you to see. Before we get into this, this is by Alienable Rights. This is a really good book. It's called Alienable Rights. And book is by Francis D. Adams and Barry Sanders. And the subtitle of it say Alienable Rights, the exclusion of African Americans in a white man land. We're gonna exclude that bottom part, right? And this is from 1619 to 2000. We're going to take out white man's land because we're going to take it out. All right. So now let's look at here. Chapter 3 is say the dark side of the Constitution. Now this old Benny wrote, and he wrote this in 1787. He said, when you assemble a number of men to have the advantage of their joint wisdom in your inalienable assembly, all their prejudice, their passion, their errors of opinion, their local interests, and their selfish views come into play. That's written by Benjamin Franklin in 1787. You also have William Lloyd Garrison wrote in 1845, a covenant with death and agreement with hell. That is the dark side of the Constitution. And they're referencing this dark side of the behavior that they're bringing forward from Europe. That's why they were looking for new ways to be able to build a new nation. And that's why they were taking a lot of the morals and principles from the Anishinaabe Confederacy Constitution and learning of that from Ben Franklin, because they didn't want to bring a lot of those morals and patriarchal views. Now, when they learned in the final finale of it, they accepted a lot of the framework of the Anishinaabe Confederacy Constitution. They accepted a lot of the framework in the working of the government, in the building up of the government, but they did not accept the matriarchal principle. So once again, they brought a lot of their prejudice. A lot of the prejudice stayed as the foundation for the new Constitution. So that's what you're experiencing today. You're experiencing a new nation that's in formation that went from a matriarchal principle to now under a patriarchal principle. Now let's get into King Henry and who he was. And this is why we say the diabolical aspect of King Henry. King Henry, he ruled for 36 years from 1509 to 1547. He had 6 wives during his time period and several mistresses. Now, he was quite desperate quest for political unification, and a healthy male heir drove him to annual 2 marriages, and he had 2 wives beheaded. Like, he was just livid. He felt like he was cursed. He could not create a male heir. Now, his chaotic love life caused an unstable succession. foreign policy implications, and even led to the break with the Church of Rome. Creation of the state. Now, why do you say that, Tamara? Here's another book I wanted to show you. We have receipts, baby. I love receipts because, people always, we ain't gonna go there, but we got receipts. All right. This is another great book. It's called A Corporate Soul. Now, this book is going to really unlock some things when you're talking about how to properly operate in public and private jurisdiction. And this deals with also the church, ecclesiastical protection. Now, this book is called A Corporate Soul, and it's a Freeing American pulpits from the restrictive 501c3 laws for churches. Now, let's see how that started. Now, in 1534, King Henry VIII split from the church in an act of rebellion that is known as the Act of Supremacy. So he was moving from divinity to now statutory codes and order. He said, I'm gonna write an executive order. I'm gonna write an act. And I'm just gonna, because I'm the king, I'm gonna do what I want to do. All right. Now, the motives behind the split were due to King Henry VIII having an affair and wanting to divorce his current wife. Now, because the Catholic Church was solely in charge of any potential dissolutions of marriages, King Henry VIII sought the Pope's approval for being able to marry his mistress. They was like, "Nah, you already married. Now, why we just gonna? Your wife didn't do anything to you. Why you just gonna divorce the woman like that?" Because I like my mistress, so I want mistress. Yeah, the Pope denied the request. He said, "Nah, we're not doing that." Which it infuriated the king. I'm the king. I'm the man. You know how they stump around the house. I'm the man of the house. I'm the man of the house. I'm the king. So in essence, what transpired next was the formation of the world's first denominational split. Oh, separation of church and state. Oh, is that how it happened? Did I say that? Mm-hmm. So the king decided to forego the divine rights of the Pope in favor of his new doctrine, the divine right of kings, and thus crowned himself the Lord Sovereign Head of the Church of England. It was also at this time that the Church of England became Anglican Episcopal, which means at this time the church state was effectively replaced by a state church. So at one point in time, it was the church became before the state. And then the king said, the state became before the church. So that created the separation between the church and the state, which is called your 504. All right. How did the state get back in? How did the state get back? How did the state get back in people's business? Let's figure this out. How did the state get back into the church business? Because remember, just recently, everybody saw how much the state was really in control of the church, the businesses, and all that. I mean, they made it abundantly clear. We control this. We control this. And because, when that movement came, y'all ain't cutting me off no time soon. I just got started. So when that movement came, yeah, they enacted their control over the church and the people and the businesses. Well, they tried with some of the people, it didn't work. All right. So let's see how that happened. Now, you remember in 1968, there was a movement called the Civil Rights Movement. And in that Civil Rights Movement, the church was heavily a pillar in the deciding factor of who would the vote of confidence. The church had so much control regarding the vote of confidence time, when that time of casting the vote we talked about in the beginning, which is called the vote of confidence. The church and its members the head of the church, he was the ecclesiastical body that told the people how to move and what decisions was going to be made and how you were to vote. I mean, people really look towards their pastors regarding helping making these decisions for casting their vote of confidence every 4 years. And during this time period, they realized how effective that Marcus Garvey, how effective that Martin Luther King, how effective that Prophet Noble Drew Ali, how, and lastly, how, how effective Malcolm X. So you have these pillars, these prophet pillars of the community that led the people. I mean, you talking about, you didn't have no Facebook, no X, no Twitter. You didn't have any of that. So to create movements where you have millions and like more millions than people even can gather on all these social sites. That's how many millions of people that tuned in, connected in to the words that these men of the cloth, these men of prophets, these men of God gave the word in how to enact your vote of confidence in a time of casting a vote, not just local, but also in federal elections. They were very powerful. So the civil rights movement in 1968, Martin Luther King was like, I mean, if he had Facebook and Twitter, I think he'll be off the chart. Today it'll just be off the chart. So he had so much pull across the nation that when that happened, they was like, this man had too much pull. We got to do something about this. So they had to create something to call a 501c3 after his, they had to create the 501c3, which creates the exemption, which cut the mouth. It cut the mouth for the political leaders. So that's why when they say, but Tamara, we have a lot of politicians, they go to, they go to the church doing this. Yeah, the political leaders go to there and they speak, but you don't see any pastors, political leaders giving their opinion, their weigh in on which political candidate to vote for, because they don't want to lose their exemption. So the mouth of the pastors is shut because they just want an exemption through a 501c3. When a 501c3 is not needed, because you can have what you call a 504, a corporate soul, operating divinity. So there you go. Now, what are patriarchal views? Patriarchal views are relating to the patriarch, which is the male head of a family, tribe, community, church, or any type of civic political order. You know what I'm saying? So now the characteristic of it also deals with the characteristic of an entity, such as the family, church, and controlled by a male. Now, think about, what is a patriarchal church in which women are not allowed to hold leadership roles? An example of this would be the Vatican Church. You don't see a woman, period, in the Vatican Church at all, period. So, so that's what the patriarchal view. So people like, oh, I'm patriotic. That means that you're male dominated in your view process, in your thought process, which means you don't understand the matriarchal principles of the land. So that's where they come in at. All right. Why no confidence? When you say no confidence, you're talking about insecurity. You're talking about lack of assurance. You're talking about uncertainty, lack of sureness, and lack of self-reliance. That's where no confidence come in at. We have lack of self-reliance in self, relying on self, who we are, because we lack the understanding of the constitution of the land, the constitution of our inheritance. We lack that understanding. So you attach to a patriarchal view, a bit of control and dominance. And so in 2024, it's been a gender war. This lack of confidence has created what we call a gender war. the men, especially the black men, black men been talking. I mean, they've been getting on their podcast of 2024, and they have been talking, and they have said how they feel about this woman. They don't care what color you are. They have said, and it should have been a time to listen, not to all. No, not to all, but to some. And in my opinion, there's a difference between a man and a male, an adult male. A man has the understanding, the duality of balance, and understanding both of the essence within him, his feminine and his masculine. And he's not too swayed on either side. He has balance and control. Now, this gender war should have been a time of being able to listen to the men. And one of the things that really took me out is when former President Barack Obama felt like he had to come out and give the black men a lashing with his finger, waving that finger and saying what you better do and what you should do. And the black men all year been saying they're tired, they're fed up, they're not taking it anymore. They want some answers, they want some movement, but movement occurs with planning. You can't just scream and holler and expect change to just effectuate like that. There should be things put in place for that movement occur. And I know a lot of women are at fault for a lot of things that are occurring as well. I'm going to get into that. So this year has been the year of the gender war. And that's where the no confidence, like we think about it, that's where the no confidence take place at. Insecurity, lack of assurance. Black men has not been assured in their household. They have not been protected even through the women of their consanguinity and clan, of their blood type and their family members. So that's where the no confidence is shaping up and taking place at as well. Now, we also have this new wave coming forward, which is like a feminist movement 2.0. Now, the 4B movement. Now, this 4B movement, now they said it emerged in South Korea during the mid to late 2010 and currently revamping itself after the 2024 election. And this started with feeling like, oh, Trump came in office, now we must we couldn't have our reproductive rights, and confusing the reproductive rights with the right to just eliminate the unborn child, not protecting the unborn baby. So they feel like we're going to ramp up this movement called the 4B movement. So the 4 no's consist of no dating, no sex, no marriage, and no childbirth. That's gonna work for some. I think I'm gonna take a drink for that. That may work. That may work for a small bit. But I still like to listen to the oldies. Like, I'm 51, so I still listen to my mama's music. I still listen to my mama's music. And I remember this song from this lady named Betty Wright. And it's called A Clean Up Woman. So you go ahead. You go ahead with your movement. And ladies, I pray that, and I'm gonna just say black women, I just pray that there's not another sweeping into getting connected to another movement that it doesn't serve us well and doesn't do anything for us. Now, I'm not saying to go out here and enjoy frivolous sexual activities and with any and everybody. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that this right here, this no childbirth, no sex, no marriage, no dating. Like I said, there's a song called "The Clean Up Woman," and there's a group of women that will come and clean your man out your house. So try it if you want to. We'll straight clean your man out your house, and You'll be sad. So don't try it. Everything's not for you. So I would urge my sisters to let this one. You know how when you're on them day naps, you know how when you're on them day naps, swipe to the left. See that movement? Swipe. I urge you to do that. Just take this one, like this feminism 2.0. Take that movement. The feminist should have been put in the trash can. Now you have the 2.0, this one coming up called the 4Bs. Swipe that one. Swipe that one. Don't do it. Don't do it, ladies. Don't do it. Don't break your home up for no 4B movement. Don't break your home up. Because you got the cleanup woman out there with gloves on. You're going to take your man in and ain't going to give him back. She ain't going to give him back. She ain't going to give your man back. And you're going to be crying. I said it. Now, these other areas of no confidence, they deal with political representation. Now, we have to understand this political representation, and we have to understand this. Now, this deals with this political representation deals with the lack of confidence that's going on today. Now, in this political representation, this deals with despite the increasing numbers in the Black politicians and leaders in the office of today, like for instance in Atlanta, there's a there's a lot of Black leaders in local in the local government. There's a lot of Black leaders in the local government. So with that being said, hold on, I'm trying to find some. The political representation, right? There's a lot of Black leaders. There are a lot of Black leaders in Georgia. And there's a lot of dissatisfaction with the leadership that has occurred. Now, I've just came back after 15 years of being away, and I see a lot of the inequities that has taken place under Black leadership. So the no confidence also comes with the political representatives in the Black politicians and the leaders that's in office. And many Black Americans feel that these representatives often prioritize broader parties. Like for instance, a lot of them deal with maybe fraternities, sororities. They will deal with what they call has created a class of elitism. So they will represent and prioritize a broader party for elitism and agendas over community needs. And as a result, there's a sense of disillusionment that even elected officials may not fully advocate for the issues affecting the Black communities. So you have that lack of confidence in that area. You also have economic disparities. Now, those economic disparities, that deals with stark reality for Black Americans, where there's wealth gaps, where there's limited access to generational wealth, and also the inequities in housing and economic contribution to a cycle of poverty. Now, this economic marginalization fuels distrust in economic systems that appear rigid against them, leaving many of us to call for a complete system overhaul. It's like, okay, let's go ahead and just eliminate everything and let's start over. Let's do that. How about we do that? How about we start over? So that's what a lot of people are calling for. Let's just overhaul everything and start over, because what we have gotten for the past 40, 50 years has not gotten us anywhere. Now, it also shows that where that's, even though in this current vote, you had about 80, 90%, I say 80%. I'd say when they say race and gender, when you go look at the report, I want to say about 80, 90% of Black women voted for Kamala Harris, and 80% voted for, of men voted for Kamala Harris. Now, You have a small sector of blacks that said no more. I'm not just going along to get along with the same party line, because it's not serving. So people are starting to wake up to the fact that it's not about just voting, casting a vote of confidence based off, oh, my grandmother did it, so I'm a part of this party because my grandmother did it. I was indoctrinated into it, and this is what I know. People are doing the research, and people are learning that when the party and the vibration is not serving you, you have to go in a direction that will help to move the progress of the society forward. And that's what the vote of confidence of November the 5th, 2024 vibrated. We have to move this thing forward and heal and make some corrective actions. So there's areas of no confidence in the policing. There's this domestic terrorism in the Black community that must come up under subjection. And, you know, that must create an overhaul. You also have the education system where the families are seeing there's too much sexual innuendos that's being taught to the children. So the removal of the sexual orientation agenda on the children must be stopped. You know, those things must be stopped. We must protect the future, our future leaders of America. We must protect them. I'm gonna get into that next week as we break down the education system, and how that education system has molded today's no confidence, and how that no confidence can be restored through the true educational system, which means to lead out. We have been heavily indoctrinated and miseducated through a system that does not pull out the essence of who we are, does not pull out, you know, our gifts. It does not allow our gifts to be stirred up and create a new thing. So I'll get into that next week. So we're going to put a pin on that. All right. Now, also justice reform. There's no confidence in the current justice reform system. Now, I think one thing a lot of people need to also look at and take in consideration, you know, you hear conversations of, if you can vote for a felon, anybody can run for office. Well, when you understand the basis of the Constitution, when you understand law, when you understand the difference between the elements of a crime and felonious act of debt servitude, which are civil crimes, it'll make a lot more sense. It'll make a whole lot more sense. And it'll make a lot of sense when things come upon you, such as ticketing, things that put liens on you, those debt crimes and those statute codes and ordinance. You'll see how they have zero weight against the Constitution. So that's an area that everyone must explore. It doesn't have anything to do with, oh, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an attorney. Government starts with self. Government means governing of self. Then we say confidence is self-assurance. You have to govern yourself first before you ask the representative to go forward and represent you as a body of people. So the problem of today's society is the inability of governing of self. So once we get that under control, then you'll have the proper representative in place of the governing body of that society. Now, migration crisis. This is another area of no confidence. You know, and I can understand fully how one feel when there is finances of which the working class people are taxed to the hilt. From the grocery store to the pumps to their wages and means, their compensation, and every day. I mean, soon as you wake up in the morning, you are taxed from the moment you wake up, turn on a light, and you are taxed from the time you go to sleep. and watch TV. You're a tax, and you have a wave of people that needs asylum and refuge from their nation that's not protecting them. And you say, okay, I can invite you into my home, but you can't rob me of my whole purse. And there must be a balance and equity scale. So the no confidence is in, hey, there's not a saying is, we're not saying that everyone can come here. We're saying that, hey, we need to monitor how the appropriation of the migrant crisis affects the common day every person. So that's an area in which the no confidence of truly affected this, the vote of confidence for the 2024 election. All right. Now let's look at some areas of resolution. Now, as I stated, no one has ever won a game of chess by taking only forward moves. Now, if you understand chess, the most powerful person on the board is the queen. The queen moves in all directions: forward, back, side to side, horizontal, vertical. The queen has all the moves. Now, even the king on the chessboard has one move, but can only move one step at a time. So the power of the queen is very powerful to protect that area. Now we're back to the matriarchal principle. The queen has the ability to go forward and see things and make a call out for the protection for the king, the Lord, and the protection of its people. So, like I said, no one has ever won a game of chess by only taking forward moves. Now let's look how these restorations can take place. Let's look at that. Now we can look forward to either restoration of the matriarchal principles to your household nation, because this starts on a micro level, a very small level. It must start in your home and the governance of your home. Also, a restoration of the manhood to his lordship position in your household nation. It must start in your household before you are to confederate with other clans and consanguinity nations that's within your pathway. So it must start in the home. We must clean our own home up first. We can't keep thinking that we can vote a representative in and they do all the work for you. And then when you're unhappy with that, you really don't know what you're unhappy about. But the unhappiness and no confidence starts with you, because you didn't have the confidence to govern your own house. So how could you even appoint someone to represent and lord over your house? Where is your Lord? Where is your Lord of your household? Yeah. So we have to look into that. We have to encourage civic engagement, voter education, and local accountability measures. Now, one of the things I look at quite closely, I look at if you go to congress.gov and you're unsure about who is your Congress member, who is your district leader that you didn't vote for, but they still got voted in. I remember I was just wanting to be nosy, right? And being nosy, I ended up at the polls. And I haven't been to the polls since Barack Obama first term. And because before that, the last time I had voted for Clinton and after voting, that was 1992. I did say I'm 51, right? So I remember in 1992, that was my first time voting coming out of high school. I was so happy, and I was working for the Center for Disease Control. And I'm just going to say this before I leave. And I worked at CDC. That was my first job in high school, my 11th grade year. I was appointed to Center for Disease Control. I worked there as administrator. And back in 1992, I was making $12.01 an hour. That's a lot for 1992, right? So that was my first job in 11th grade. And from that, I was so excited. So my senior year, I just went straight to work, right? I went straight to work my senior year. And then 1992 came, 91, 92 came, and it was time to vote. My first time voting. I was 18. It was time to vote. Voted for Clinton. Clinton won. He was running against Bush. and Bush Senior. He beat Bush Senior. I mean, he was running against Bush Senior and won, right? And I be darned. November came, January came, and next thing you know, they had this rule called last hired, first fired. So I lost my job. I said, forget Clinton. I didn't vote again. I was so mad. I was so mad. I didn't understand. I didn't understand government. I didn't understand it at all, period. I told you I was afraid. So they shouldn't even be encouraging 18-year-olds to vote because we don't have a clue of what we're voting for or about. Like clueless. So I lost my job, right? So I said, forget this election stuff. So I didn't vote again until 2008. 2008. So I voted. I said, okay, y'all saying he's a black man. And I was kind of skeptical about that. So here, once again, I was still in my ignorance. And I voted on race identity. He won. Then guess what? The house came. The financial house caught a fire. Every single, oh my God, it was just awful. Every single property that I had, I swear for God, it just went up in flames. Marriage went up in flames. Everything just went up in flames. I was like, forget this voting stuff. It's like every time there's a change in guard, something crazy happened, right? So I was like, this is wild. This is weird. So that's when I just went on my quest to learn, what is this voting about? Like, what is this crap? What is voting? What is understanding who you are? What is understanding law? So that's where my thirst came from with all that taking place. And other things too. I'll get into that. So recently I said, I moved into a new district. And I remember I was a political consultant for a client, and he was running in a district in Virginia. And I was his political consultant. He was running for a House seat. And man, I witnessed some crazy stuff in this political arena that I didn't really know existed. And it was heartbreaking to see how things go down with that voting process, with the people that lack understanding about it. And it was rough. That was my first political client, and I can absolutely say it was rough. And so I wanted to go to the polling station to see what was on the ticket. And when I went in there, I was like, darn it, I got to show my ID to get in here. So I was like, okay, now I was trying to act all like do some detective work. So I got it behind the booth, and I was so disgusted that every district leader that was up for re-election, it was like a judge seat. It was like a board of education seat. It was like quite a few of them. No one ran against them, which means that by default, they get to continue to be sitting ducks in that position because they didn't have an opposition to run against them. I was so disgusted because that is not how our system should be set up. And that's how there's no term limits on a lot of these positions. And that's how you see House members, senators, board of education members, sheriffs, and things of that nature continue to be. That's how Joe Biden was in that position for freaking 40 some years up in Delaware. It was the senator of Delaware. Nobody ran against him. He didn't have anybody to run against him. And you see that everywhere. And that is a violation. That means that the people are not being involved locally. So how could you get mad? Because it starts at the local level. It starts at the local level. It starts at the local level. It starts at the state level, because your state representative is the person in Congress, the lower house, and your senator of your state It's the senator representative of the upper house. So if you're not making a decision about the changing guards within these representatives, their voting record is going to be the same. And in your state, you're going to get what you get because you got what you got. You got the same mind, the same ideology. That's not changing. And one thing I really don't like is the Supreme Court. I don't like that they sit in those seats for life because there's not fresh wind of thought to where there's what you call, there's like a political back and forth, like a tennis game between jurisprudence and semantics when decisions are adjudicated. And when there's bodies that come in and look at things in a different perspective and a different eye view, it creates a more understanding. I think one of the things we're going to talk about, I think a lot of people didn't understand, was the overturning of the Roe v. Wade. A lot of people didn't understand in the overturning of the Chevron deference, and how those two are very important landmark decision cases that should have been overturned. And let's just talk about Roe v. Wade. Now, a lot of this, I think a lot of people don't understand, is that it deals with the financial appropriation against all the people. I'm going to say that again. It deals with the financial appropriation, which means the cost against all the people, the U.S. citizens in that society. So what Roe v. Wade, what the federal government said, we're not going to continue to tax the people, all the people, for abortion rights. We're not going to tax all the people. We can't handle that on our financial federal budget. We're going to kick that down to the state level because the state has its own constitution. It has your House district representative and it has your senators of your state. You have your various districts within your state and you have your Senate, the upper chamber representative. We're going to kick that down to the state appropriation budget and see if that state, based off each state, if their budget can handle the right to abortion, the cost. It's about the cost. If the state can handle the cost of that. So if your state said no, all right, this is what you need to do. Go to congress.gov. Put in your zip code. You scroll to the bottom. Put in your zip code. It's going to give you your district, House district, your lower house representative, and it's going to give you your two senators. For your, like in Georgia, we have Warnock. You know, we have Warnock as one senator. We have Ossoff as another senator. And in my district, I have Hank Johnson as the House representative. So your district, House, lower house, and your senator of your state convene on a bill regarding the bill to add the appropriation of abortion rights into that state. And if your state voted nay, that's why your state does not allow it, because it wasn't able to be handled on the budget for that state. These are conversations you need to have with your state representative. This, you know, so that's how it works. When the federal kicks it back to the state, the federal is reorganizing their budget. It's like in your home, what I can afford, what I can't. Can I afford these Louboutin this month? Or this, can I not? Do I need to go get some other type of shoes? You know, this managing your house. That's what it's about. So we have to start looking at, go, and you want to know what bills are out or what bills have passed and where they're at in this legislation process on the federal level. On that congress.gov website, you'll see what bills, who sponsored the bill, how people voted for the bill, how that process worked. And if you feel like there's a bill that in the federal level, and you feel that your representative, your state representative should vote against that bill, you need to be in contact with your district and your state senators and advise them as a pack of society, as the people in that society they represent, for them to either vote yes or against a federal bill that they're going to vote for. That's how it works. We must learn these things. You must get civically involved in understanding the process. Don't wait, because I don't see anybody talking about the process after November the 5th. You're not talking about how to get involved. Government is every day. Every day is government, not just every 4 years. Government is every day. Every day you govern, you get up, you're governing your home. Your government need to communicate with your representatives that you have for your state. Government is not every 4 years. Government is every single day. And that's what the people must know. And that's what the people need to get involved with. Stop just talking. Now, also, rebuild trust. Let's look at that. Let's rebuild trust, such as police reform, economic investment. Now, we're going to talk about that policing reform, because the policing reform need to come out of the corporate structure, and it needs to go to the sheriff, which is Cleo, the chief law enforcement officer of the land. The sheriffs need to take back the ordinance of that. Economic investment in Black communities and authentic political representation. Authentic political representation comes with governing yourself and knowing the proper representative that you have voted, cast a vote of confidence to represent you and your people, your clan, and consequently. Also, fostering a future of trust, equity, and effective accountability within a Black community. These are the ways of moving forward. You got to take some steps back. Look at the accountability factor in self, because accountability starts with the self, governing of the self, governing with the home. So I hope this no confidence, I hope I was able to shed some light on how this no confidence is rooted in the matriarchal versus the patriarchal principles of the land and a usurped nation, and how it continues forward. So, and if you want to do something about it, you got to get involved. If it's not me, when? If it's not you, then who? We just gonna keep chirping like a bird? Not for me in my house. No, it's not gonna happen like that. So I hope this brought some clarity and understanding, and we're going to go deep into the educational understanding of that, with some current events that's going on about the education system and the tearing away of the education system, which I 155% agree with that. The educational system needs to be torn down. So keep in mind that stay tuned every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As I said, just another messenger is not monetized on YouTube. So please support this channel, help this channel grow. Go to Cash App at $ just another messenger, and please donate as we're working to create some modes of other modes to build and grow for this channel. Also, if you like to email Just Another Messenger, you can email us at justanothermessengerpodcast at gmail.com. I thank you. I bid you farewell for tuning in, and have a great evening.